It's Tuesday, October 4th, 2022. I'm in this. Um, I just returned home. Um, it's a Tuesday at 7. I met with the two um, people from the very specific Jesus Christ Organization of Latter-day Saint here in New York. I had met them on the street. They invited me to watch a conference, which I did. I took what they refer to as impressions that I had, questions that I had. And then there was a meeting set up close. They were very helpful. I was very honest. I mean, again, I could speak on this in so many different things. Like as a mother, and they're like the age of my sons, or my older 3 sons, and they're from Utah. I am so frightened for them in New York. I wanted them to know that, I appreciate Utah and their way of being as a woman, as a mother, as a person. Um, just what they or how they are is very utopian. It feels, they feel like very utopian. Had a mother and father, had a very strong, solid foundation of upbringing in the church, in the Word of God, in a communal base of participation and preparation for a life of service. I wish I had only been so lucky. I wanted them to know that I appreciate. That's the impression that I received from them, and where I'm having difficulties and where I need clarity, since they have that foundation of like almost that perfect what used to be. And I even prefaced it as saying they prefaced and taught in a very specific manner. They led, I followed. I then used their teachings to counterbalance and say, now, I that is the utopian way, that's the ups, the downs, got it. But then to counter reflect back to where New York is in this day and age. Here's where I'm at, my concerns. Here's my son sitting right next to me, my 10-year-old. I started my youth in looking for a community, looking for a way, being open to whatever New York had to provide as far as religious training, teachings, whatever. I really fell very short. Where I was, there were fables, there were life lessons, and participation in what would you have done in that kind of situation. Just raising good people that think of others, but not necessarily learning and reciting and knowing page number and so on and so forth of one particular teaching. But acting in good faith, always leaving on, if possible, on a not starting trouble while you are there, not looking for a fight ever, being real, laying low, um, in every interaction that I've ever walked into. Um, and so I said, and then we had private conversation as to where my concerns were in the local area. I shared that with them mostly because they're very new to the New York area. I wanted them to know that I'm not clear, but I've been to Utah. I've been in Nevada. I've been in Arizona. I've met through my real estate career agents that worked there, and they always give me an impression of this wholeness, this this utopian that I strived for. I wasn't able to receive. I was not that blessed. Some things happened. Um, I wasn't able to meet where my goal for myself was a person and start a family in that manner. There's a lot of brokenness in New York. There's a lot of broken homes in New York. There's a lot of broken families in New York. There's a lot of familial situations that do not um, appear to be going. It's a different stage of evolution. And there's a lot of international in New York, where I don't know if Utah is experiencing the same thing. And it is frightening, where I'm frightened for my son, for myself. Some things that I've just recently been made aware of by the TV, by some of my inquiries, by some of my observations in the field. And, um, but they are just like this, even though they're my son's age, they're just this safe place. Like they just have this amazing ability to just be like this shelter rock of understanding, listening, and being open, which I greatly appreciate, especially in my fear for them of what I've already experienced in New York and how I feel my 4 decades have been wasted in New York. Um, but pulling myself out of that and trying to bestow upon them some of the pearls of wisdom that I've, now that their home is here in New York, of things that they might come up against and things to look out for. Because if their only one study is of this, the gospel, and of this Book of Mormon and this Jesus Christ word, um, but they also have a New York contact, which was there as well, which I met with, um, and he also met my son. So um, I think that it was a very nice meeting. I left with a sense of and another meeting, thank goodness, but more so I can reflect and really observe and then help them on their journey. And they've already helped me so much with some of their knowledge and their gifts, their pearls of wisdom that they've were able to share with me, in their rock solid foundation of knowing things far better than in their expertise than I did, of how they're learned so far and their solid, strong belief where it's not shattered whatsoever. Because I go between the go spell of the words, for construct with, and how it works in this international. And I even said, I was like, we're in a different stage, almost like one of those dark ages of where it comes at the bottom. I was like, and I get lost in how did some of these places get this authority here um, in New York? How did these houses of worship and amongst Christianity, really, I've seen some interesting pieces, and it's just, I don't know. It seemed like there was some concern that we both shared, um, without going very deep into it. So that was humbling to say the least. But I said, there's been this influx of I don't know what in my 4 decades here, and my parents' 7 decades here. And then I have a grandparent who was here in the United States of America for whatever. I was like, and so there's history here in New York, in just my one family and what they've seen and what I've seen. Um, and this brokenness and compartmentalized of, and then I asked about something called seminary, which I've heard others say before. In fact, I was at Starbucks one day and this gentleman said that his son was in the seminary. I had no idea what that meant. I wanted to be really excited for him because it was his son. He was talking about it. He seemed proud about it. But I had no idea what that actually meant. So I was in safe place, asked without like offense, asked this group what it meant and how it worked, and they taught me what it meant in Utah. And I said, see now, because they just made an assumption that New York works the same. And I was like, now see here, this is where my experience, having gone through schools here and several of different choices of school, they're real big on separation of church and state here. I was like, so there really is, I don't know, I haven't seen, like, they're real about like no God in school unless it's something you pay for. And from what I've seen, and even then when I went, it was a very like sterile manila teaching of it. Um, I was like, so, because they were saying like it's something that you do before school. And I'm like, I don't know if that's, again, I don't know the like authority here and how the integrated services work for religious purposes, but it's not. He said no, in Utah they it's in school, like you can. I was like, now who asks for that? Is that something I have to pursue? Because I don't know if the public school, I mean, I would, I mean, it sounds like, because again, it's so compartmentalized. And again, it goes back to like divided we fall in that subcontext of the house is here, the church is there, the school is there, and then where do they have unity? I mean, I haven't had unity from my kids since they were born in one pathway that was enlightened, and it looked like, I mean, like, I think about on an airplane, they teach in the pamphlet of emergency management before you ever take flight, or they used to, that should the plane lose all power and like you need your way, the aisle lights up and at least there's floor lighting and it shows you like towards the exits. My kids arrived and humans didn't even have that level of preparation for like their schooling into their adulthood. I mean, it seems like so simple of a plan and like request having children in an area. But again, between all this international inside this state, being that we're in like the bedrock of a hub in New York City, I feel very disadvantaged, and I feel my children have been very disadvantaged. And I voiced as much concern, considering they're from an outside safe place, that I feel was able to weather a time frame, and they were blessed to somehow hold their safe space longer and tighter than what New York's gone through in some alternate situation and universe that there's parallels, but it's not as easy to circumnavigate in this day and age. Um so almost in like a partnership of sharing of wisdom. So they were so kind to bless me with this Book of Mormon, which I've heard of. I said, I've heard the words being used on the news. It's a Broadway play. I said, I get it. It's a way to make it a household name so other people have heard of it. It might be something that they'll seek out more. I get the appreciation of it and how they construct it into like New York's landscape. And they kind of laughed about it. I was like, but I do appreciate their history on this, because the history really does help for me in a lot of things. Um, and then direction as to where to look, or they guided and directed me where to look in here. Um, and then setting up a second meeting um, where I will attend without my son. Um, so that was really helpful. Um, New York is just, it's like a different animal. It is so busy here. And it's so busy in its inefficiency and in its brokenness. I said it's almost like if we were in a small boat that's capsized. I think that there's multiple areas of community that agree that we've all capsized in some. We agree to disagree. We can see that we're a little upside down in the brokenness of things in certain areas. Some places, whatever, but in certain areas, it's a brokenness. I happen to be one of the brokenness. We see that we're capsized, and now it's a matter of how do we right the ship safely and come out of this brokenness, especially since the youth is already here and so much time is wasted on nothingness. I mean, like, my whole 4 decades have been completely derailed. Could have been 40 years worth of active service in righting the ship. So when I arrived, it was already in this upright format, ready to go for the next sail and the next season of sailing, but it wasn't. And I'm like treading water at 40 with a 10-year-old I'm trying not to have drowned next to me, looking at the capsized ship still and wondering, like, I know I can't do it alone. I know there are others that see what I see and not even knowing where to begin. And so, I think I made that pretty clear. So I'm going to take the book that they gave me to heart. I'm going to attempt in my ability to read in short script with short attention span, because sometimes my eyes work, sometimes they don't, for holding the pages and the words and the thought. There's something going on with whatever I'm recovering from as far as anemia and other biological malnutrition and dehydration and so on and so forth. I'm having trouble with my eyes at the moment. Um, along with some other things, but I'm trying to, it's like I just expect it to pop back into pre biological attack, back into like where I was, but it's been slow and reoccurring, of whatever. So as I attempt that recovery, back to being able to read something and really focus on it, and then focus my attention with making the impressions that it left and writing my own handwritten notations on it. I'm going to work on that however long it takes me diligently, with my full attention over the next few days before our next meeting. It's star 1978, star 8378, Nicole Cattaruzza. It's Earth, solar system, Milky Way universe, galaxy is broken, and it's Bayside Station, Bayside, New York, 11361.